I say welcome to the WEN Cafe on Diverse 50/50. My name is Patience Bentu. I am a gender and race campaigner. And so this session is very, very important to me, talking about diverse 50/50, how to get more women into political positions. And the reason why it is important to me is because I am also a Black woman. So I've got a sort of double interest in this. How do we get not just more women, but how do we get more ethnic minority women into these positions that we're talking about? And joining me on screen today are organizers from WEN Wales. We've got Dr. Jessica Lyman, who is the Policy and Public Affairs Officer for WEN Wales. And we've also got Megan Evans, the Communications and Engagement Officer for WEN Wales. And for those of you who might not know, WEN Wales is simply the Women's Equality Network of Wales. Thank you. Straight away, I am delighted to welcome our three awesome panelists that we've got today. And I would just run through their names before we start the session again. I've got Evelyn James. I've also got Sian Gwenllian, and I've got Zainab Asunramu. And as I call them to speak, I will give you a little bit more information on who they are. And so straight away in the first half of the session, we will be hearing from the three panelists. I will be posing questions to them, and they'll be talking to us and telling us more about the work they do, why they do it, and every other related thing to the topic, Diverse 50/50. And in the second half of the event, we will be taking questions from the Q&A chat box. So please, if you have your questions, that is the place to put them in, and I will pick them up with the assistance of Jess and Megan, and we will pose those questions to the panelists in the second half of the session. So straight away, I will be going to, first of all, Evelyn James, who is the Diverse 50/50 campaign manager for Women's Equality Network Wales. Evelyn, you're welcome once again. And the Diverse 50/50 campaign has been going on for a while now, but, you know, introduce us to the campaign and what it is that the campaign is trying to achieve and why.
Thank you very much, the lovely Patience Bentu. Thank you. And you're welcome everyone once again to WEN Cafe. We're very happy to have you here. And to my other beautiful panelists as well. Thank you and welcome. So I'm going to be introducing you to Diverse 50/50 campaign and what we are about. The focus is simple. We're looking for diverse and equal representation in the Senate and political structure of Wales, equal representation in the leadership structure of Wales for women, for Black, Asian, and minority ethnics, LGBTQ+, disabled people, just underrepresented groups in the leadership structure of Wales. We want a Wales that will provide us with an enlarged Senate that recognizes all voices, the needs of everyone in the community of Wales. We are asking for legally binding diversity and gender quotas, and we're asking for an STV voting system in Wales. In essence, we know that the exclusion of one voice is the exclusion of all. And in our Wales community, everyone deserves the right to be heard. Everyone deserves the right to be seen, and everyone's needs has to be catered for. And this is why we need representation in the leadership and representation in Wales for women. We are here today because of the divide in the society that we see. And if we look at where we're coming from, the environment was surrounded with different voices, languages, and different needs. So we cannot attempt to describe the need of another better than the people who have gone through what they've been through. Like, if you're not disabled, how can you speak for them? Do you understand their pain? If you're not from Black, Asian, and minority ethnic groups, how can you speak for them? How do you understand their needs? This is why we need equal representation and true leadership in Welsh community. And the time for us to act is now. This is what Diverse 50/50 campaign is about, and we're calling on everyone to join hands with us and push this agenda forward to give everyone in the community of Wales equal rights and equal opportunities to speak. Thank you.
That is amazing. Thank you very much, Evelyn, for taking us through that journey and making it very clear to us why it is important that this campaign not only gets widespread, but picks up momentum as well to achieve the expected outcomes that we want for Wales. So thank you very much for that. And I'm going to go over to the next panelist, Sian Gwenllian, who is the Plaid Cymru Member of Senedd and chair of the cross-party group on women. And Sian will be giving us the Welsh Assembly perspective on this campaign. So Sian, why is diverse and equal representation in our Senedd important to you? And
they would refer to me, the chair would open the meeting, gentlemen, oh, and Ms. Gwenllian. I was the only woman there, and that is going back a long time, but things haven't changed. They've changed slightly, but they haven't changed enough. And when there was an opportunity for me to stand for the Senedd, one of the main reasons I stood as a candidate for Plaid Cymru in Arfon was because I wanted to practice what I preach. I've always said that we need a balance of representation in the Senedd, in all political life. And there was an opportunity for me to stand. I got elected, and this Senedd term, I've made it one of my main priorities to push forward the Senedd reform agenda to include STV, to include gender quotas, but also to increase the size of the Senedd, but also to address the lack of diversity within the current setup in the Senedd. They are all important aspects of what we need to be addressing. And there is a fantastic opportunity at this very moment to actually start making those big changes. And you asked me why? Well, why? Because it's the fair, surely it's the just and fair thing to do in the first place, to have wide representation, to have all the voices of Wales at the table. And secondly, once you are at the table, and once there are lots of you around the table, you can then make further changes in the way society in Wales is developing. We can, as women, put on the agenda the need to improve childcare and early years education and opportunities for women, and addressing the pay gap. We can actually, by being there in equal representation, we can put those matters on the table. And from the point of view of diversity, yes, you know, we need to be looking at other protected characteristics as well, and try and work out how we can use a statutory system of elections to further the need for the voice of other protected characteristics to be heard within Welsh society.
Oh, thank you very much, Sian. That is very well said. And, you know, everything that you've said resonates with me as a woman who, over the years of my life, I've sat in spaces where I've been the only woman in the midst of men. And so I have witnessed firsthand what it feels like, you know, to sit in decision-making rooms where everything is all about what concerns men and nothing about women is covered, or if it is indeed, it's only scraped on the surface. So thank you very much for that. And now I will go over to our third panelist, who is Zainab Asunramu, and she's from an organization, and correct me if I'm wrong, if it's not an organization, called Elect Her. Zainab, introduce us to the work that you do with Elect Her.
Thank you very much, Patience. And I just want to say a huge thank you for inviting us and me to come and speak at this event. And also just a huge kudos and energy to Evelyn and Sian. I completely agree with everything that you said, and round of applause, basically, because I co-sign everything. Elect Her is an organization that was started, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. I should probably know the exact number, but here we are. And we were created because we've seen a dearth of representation of women, of course, in elected office. And it's not right and it's not fair. And we see how it affects policies, that affects people's lives and affects women's lives in society. When you don't have women from diverse backgrounds making up legislation or, you know, leading the way with policy, we see how it negatively impacts. And we saw that. We're seeing that during the COVID crisis. We're seeing how women are detrimentally affected. And we know that it's because there's a dearth of women at the decision-making table when it comes to deciding what happens with people during this pandemic. So we work to motivate, support, and equip women to stand for elected office in all spheres of government across Britain. We provide them with the knowledge, the confidence, and the skills that they need to get started on their political journey, and provide community, resources, and training every step of the way. You know, we know that the politics of old was an old boys club. We know that it's a lot about who you know rather than the quality of your character and what you can offer. And we know that lots of women in society are kind of priced out of even standing for election. There's just so many barriers in the way of women actually getting elected into politics. We want to remove those barriers by demystifying the process for women. So we work with all of the political parties, or the majority of them, and we do workshops where they demystify the process. They tell women, this is what it takes to stand, this is what you need to do, this is the application process, this is the interview process, this is what happens at hustings, this is what happens when you finally get on the ballot paper, this is what you need to do to ensure that your community votes for you at the ballot, you know, this is what you need to do to network within your party. And if you're an independent candidate, even better, these are lots of different organizations working with independent candidates. So we really do our best to make sure that women they know the process inside and out, and they feel confident and ready to stand. And then we support women who are standing. So we've got a whole campaign of work and resources to support women who are standing in 2022 local elections. And that is with campaign boot camp. So we give them advice from the experts about how to campaign. We give them resources, just everything that they need in order to make the process easy for them. And we partner with lots of different organizations. I mentioned funding earlier. I talked about the fact that lots of women don't stand for election because it's expensive. Are you going to spend 11 grand on a campaign when you have your rent to pay? Do you even have time to take off work to go on the campaign trail? These are the real questions facing women and preventing them from standing. Do you have money to attend the hustings if you have to also pay somebody to look after your children? And if you are a disabled woman with mobility issues, then do you have enough money to get a cab to the hustings place or to even canvass across a wide constituency? So we partner with an organization called Activate, and Activate are an organization that are funding women. So giving women the funding that they need to plug the gap in finances, and they can spend it how we want. We're not prescriptive. You can, well, I used to work for Activate, that's why I say we, and we're also in partnership with them. But what Activate does is they say, you don't have to spend this money on campaign materials. If you want to, you can, but also you can spend it on daycare. You can spend it on your rent. If you have to take time off of work, you can use it as a plug for your salary so that you still have an income so that you can continue to campaign. And as we know, lots of women face online abuse, and that's another thing that off-puts a lot of women from standing for political office or putting themselves forward for political office. So we partner with an organisation called Glitch, who are working to tackle online abuse for everybody, but they have specific work for women in public office. And then just to touch on it a little bit, I won't go into too much detail because I think we do everything Evelyn basically said with regards to diversity, which is that we are creating a safe space for women of colour and women with disabilities, because we know that the barriers that they face are even more. If you are a woman that lives at the intersection of lots of different identities, there's a hell of a lot of barriers in your way to stand or put yourself forward for political office. And so we are creating these safe spaces for women to tell us what they need, and we're responding to those needs. With women with disabilities, we have a bi-monthly space for deaf and disabled women in politics, and it's an opportunity for everybody to share experiences, opportunities, and progress in advocacy and lobbying asks. And it's really about making sure, you know, I know when Marsha de Cordova came into Parliament in England, and she was talking about how Parliament wasn't accessible for her. And that is one of the issues that are facing lots of disabled women in politics at the moment. So I will stop there and leave space for questions, but it really is us making sure that we want to see gender parity across different levels of government to ensure that women's voices are heard at the table. When they're heard at the political table, it trickles down into society, and that's what we need. We need more women in politics from different lived experiences to really represent the community, represent the society as we see it, and not old, male, and pale, and stale, as the saying goes.
Absolutely agree with you, Zainab, and thank you so much for shedding, you know, so much more light on the challenges that women face, you know, and this is what has called for this Diverse 50/50 campaign, and it's all about working together and with one focus and one end, you know, expectation, which is to get more women into those positions. So I'm going to sort of work my way back through the panelists from the top again by looking into diversity as it relates to campaigns towards the quotas and so on and so forth. And my question about this, and I'm going to direct this to Dr. Jessica Lyman, because she's done quite a lot of research in that area. And the question is, do gender and diversity quotas work? In your research, from your experience, and do you have examples from other countries that we can draw from?
Yeah, thank you, Patience. I think my other panelists have already illustrated really lucidly and forcefully from the such important work that they're doing and the different organizations and personal capacities, why we really need these quotas and why they are so important. And on the point of whether quotas work, the short answer is yes, they do work. We have loads of evidence with many international examples. Academic research has clearly identified them as the single most effective tool for fast-tracking women's representation in elected government bodies. Quotas are backed internationally by various institutions, including CEDAW and the EU. And they are already used by over 100 countries worldwide, including 40 countries that also use sort of intersectional quotas that try to get women with other protected characteristics into political offices. If we look specifically to the EU 27 countries, there are quite a few countries that use quotas between 30 and 50%. Ireland, for example, our close neighbor here, they are using quotas for 30%, never soon increase to 40. If we look to Belgium and France, that's an example of countries where quotas had the biggest impact. Since these were introduced in the mid-90s, women's representation has increased by about 30%, but they've introduced quotas very early on and they have very high quotas, they're at 50%. If we look to other countries, again from the EU 27, such as Greece, the impact has been a bit smaller there, but quotas have been introduced more recently, there are lower quotas, and there's also other circumstantial factors that affect that, such as the exact nature of the quotas that are in place, but also things like the general mobilization around them, and of course the many other important support mechanisms and means to address other obstacles that many other speakers have already addressed in their answers to earlier questions. So what we can say there really then is quotas are no silver bullet. We need to really combine them with all these other important factors, but they are the single most effective tool that we have. And also, if you listen carefully, you probably noticed that I've talked a lot about gender quotas. And that is because, and this is a problem that we recognize, all this research is on gender quotas. And we really need to move into gear on diversity, on looking into quotas for other protected characteristics, which countries are using them, how are they using them, what is best practice, and also look specifically at Wales, because we need to take into account the specific circumstances in Wales to see how we can have diversity quotas here and how they would work. Because if we have this opportunity within a large tennis now, and all we achieve is to fill those seats with more middle class, able-bodied women, we've really not achieved very much with that opportunity. And that's why we think it's really important that diversity and gender quotas go hand in hand, and that we move into gear and really do our research to have that in place at the same time.
I absolutely agree with you, Jessica. And I think everything you've said about quotas just kind of covers what I did with my postgraduate research into quota systems and how they would work for women in Nigeria particularly. And Nigeria is a country that's got a quota system, albeit it's in a policy form. It's just a mere policy that can change at any time. And this draws to mind the importance of legislating on quota systems, gender quota systems, because unless you do that, and that was my argument, unless you do that, those spaces will not be guaranteed. And we've drawn from all these countries that you've mentioned, it has worked, and many of these countries have either legislated or constitutionalized gender quota systems, and that is why it has worked for them. And so that takes me on the same area to ask Sian, as chair of the cross-party group on women, you are focusing on pushing for legally binding diversity and gender quotas, which we're talking about. How do you think this will help? And why have political parties failed us on this?
We need them because political parties have failed to do it themselves. That's quite obvious. And in fact, I think representation in the Senedd at one point was actually 50-50, but it's fallen back at this election. So it's obviously not good enough just to leave it to the political parties to establish their own mechanisms. There are so many problems in trying to do that. There are cultural problems, but there are also problems of incumbency. You have situations where men have been as members of the Senedd for a long time, and it's very difficult to sort of make the argument move over, make room for a woman. We do those. We do try and put those arguments over, obviously, and we need to continue to do that. But I think we need the statutory quotas. We need our Senedd to pass legislation so that political parties have to move along in this way and have mechanisms in place to ensure parity and equality. And I think in our last CPG meeting, Jessica and Evelyn presented a fantastic international evidence supporting the effectiveness of gender quotas, and you've heard Jessica outline some of that now. Data does show that quotas are the single most effective tool for fast-tracking women's representation. They're not the only tool in the box, and there's lots of work that needs to be done to support bringing in that kind of mechanism, and what Zainab was outlining is crucial. And I'm really excited to hear about all the different strands of work that you were actually doing, and I hope we can tempt you to do more in Wales, you know, so that we actually get the benefits of your work here. So basically, we need the quotas because we've seen from other countries that they do make a difference. And we need to move very, very quickly. We need to open the discussion out to discussion around diversity. I agree completely. We need now to be looking as well as how to improve current representation of BAME people openly identifying, not necessarily openly, but people who are LGBTQ+, you know, women with disabilities, etc. We need to open that conversation out as well, so that it's not just around the gender quotas, as Jessica says, and we need to have that. We need to have that information urgently. We've only got a limited window to do this. We have to move really very, very quickly so that we do have a better electoral system in place for the next Senedd election in 2026. It's fantastic that Wales now has the possibility, has the powers over the way we run our elections for our Senedd. And, you know, that opens up so many possibilities, and we should be a beacon to the rest of the world in the way we use our powers over running elections, and how we choose our candidates, how we choose our representatives. And the work needs to happen urgently now. So I would urge everybody to keep the pressure on. Now is the time to be making the case. You know, don't leave it even a few months. Now is the time to be making the case, making it in a vociferous way, backed with evidence, which is what the CPG on women has been doing so far.
Oh, thank you very much, Sian. Very important that you've made that, you know, call to duty. Now is the time, you know, we need to keep the pressure on. And, you know, that's taken me again to thinking about the multiple strands of work that Zainab is doing, you know, your organization is doing, especially looking at the various, you know, the intersections of women, which only aggravates the challenges that they go through in seeking political office. So Zainab, what impact, you know, have you made so far, and what are your future aims?
Thank you very much. Well, we've had great impact so far. So I'll talk about one of our particular programs that we run. It's called the Peer Support Program. And it's an opportunity, it's a program that's held over 7 weeks, and it's an opportunity for women from across the political spectrum, no matter where they are in their political journey, to meet with other women, to grow, create, develop their soft skills, as we like to call them. We talk about our workshops where we're kind of telling you how to stand for election or how to put yourself forward, as learning the hard skills and understanding the mechanics of getting involved in the political structure and putting yourself forward for election and what that means. But the peer circles is all about self-development. It's all about how to build your team, which is very important in politics, how to manage your online and offline profile, again, very important, how to manage your time, how to speak publicly. These are the skills that nobody tells you that you need, or nobody helps you or assists you in developing for you to really throw yourself into the political system or start your political journey. And it's run by myself and a life coach, so they really get that opportunity to develop. And so in the last 4 years, we've held 8 of those peer circles, which has seen just under 500 women from different backgrounds, locations, and political parties complete the program. Some of the women, and I don't have the figures, unfortunately, because we're so small, we're really trying to grapple with the figures. But from the last elections that we had in May, we had seen, I think there are about 10 or 20 women who were actually elected into local into local government, which was brilliant. So we do have women who have come through our program and actually make it into elected office. And many of them come back and tell us that, we couldn't have done it, without your support and without the peer support of the people who were we were in the workshops with. And a few MPs actually have told us in Parliament, UK Parliament, have told us that they've actually attended our workshops in the past as well. So it is for everybody at the wherever they are in their political journey. Our ethos is just to get as many women into politics as possible and into elected office as possible. I guess we are with most of the women's organizations in this space saying we want to reach 50-50, but actually I want to go beyond that. Why can't we have more women in elected office? So if we can reach 60-40, I'd absolutely love that. If with women making up the majority of local office and in government, that would be brilliant. And in the different parliaments, that would be amazing. Since our inception, we have seen thousands of women come through the program and attend our workshops. And it's such an honor to be a part of this brilliant community of women who want to change their communities. These are women who are actively doing things in their communities, seeing the elected officials they have and saying, do you know what, I can do better. And actually, who says I can't be you? And actually, it's about giving them the confidence to actually start taking those steps by demystifying. And we'd encourage everybody to definitely check out our website, electher.org.uk. We have loads of workshops and we'll be offering so much support for women who are putting themselves forward for 2022. So we do have a sign-up sheet on our website where you can put your details in, and that automatically pulls you into the I am standing in 2022 list, and we will be sending all resources. You automatically get booked into workshops. You automatically get booked into the campaign bootcamp that we're running with, oh God, I've forgotten their name, but they are an organization that from America actually, that are very au fait with campaigning and winning elections. I think that they actually were running and do a lot of work with Stacey Abrams. This is not my book, this is Stacey Abrams, who I'm a big fan of in terms of how she uses collective power to change communities and again, see a change in politics. So that's our vision. Our vision is to make sure that more women are elected into Parliament and local government. And Sian, I would absolutely love to do more work with you and with Wales, because we do want to increase our work in Wales. We held a couple of workshops this year about how to get involved in the elections, and we did a lot of work with regards to the Welsh Senedd as well, and getting women to back their candidates. And we held 3 different workshops. We had one in England, one in Scotland, and one in Wales. But we'd want to do more, and we'd absolutely love to work more with you all to realise our vision. So thank you.
It's fantastic that you've said, you're very willing to work with Wales and with Sian as well, because that just took us to my next question, which was to say, how can the Wen Cafe and members of Women's Equality Network, work together with your organization to push this campaign forward? If there's anything else you want to add to that, please feel free to do that right now on how you feel we can work together. Otherwise, I'll leave it to you now for a second before I come back.
Thank you. In any way you'd like to. The great thing about Electher is that we love partnership working. We are not about inventing the wheel. Our work does not belong to us. It is our work, because we have a collective vision of seeing more women in elected office. And so it was great to hear you talk about some of the stuff that you are doing, Sian, because one of the partners that we work with, CAG, which is the Centenary Action Group, they have a campaign called Enact 106, and it's basically campaigning to enact Section 106 of the Equality Act, which would change the look of women's political representation, as it would require all parties to publish diversity data on candidates standing for elections in the House of Commons, in Scottish Parliament, and in the Welsh Assembly. And so, when parties are forced to show that data, and I'm not opposed to shaming. people into action sometimes. And I think that political parties have the power. They can change things, and they are changing things very slowly, but it's slowly. You know, I saw a figure that said, I saw a stat that said, you know, we will reach gender parity in local government in 2076 or something like that, 2077. That's far too long to wait for women to be elected into office. And so, you know, I think it's so important getting political parties to publish that data, just to show actually we're not doing enough, because they're not. They're trying, but they're not doing enough. And that is, you know, women with disabilities, disabled women, it is women of color, women from different lived experiences, women from low to no income backgrounds as well. It's also a class issue that we have in politics. And also women, well, LGBTI people. And so it's really important, and we're happy to work in any and every way we can. Other things that we're really passionate about is ensuring parental leave and childcare costs for politicians, maintaining virtual measures, using hybrid systems to enable politicians to participate remotely, opens up the possibility for those with disabilities or caring responsibilities to participate in debates and votes. It was disappointing to see that we returned to in-person meetings so quickly when we know that the hybrid model has been working. And actually that's an inclusive way of working across politics. And so I would love to see that back, because I think that that's beneficial for women and people with different, with disabilities as well. And yeah, and we've heard with specific regards to local councillors, we've heard that lots of women don't feel like it's achievable to be a councillor and manage full-time work and provide for their families and provide for themselves. And so, you know, if councillors were paid a living wage and encouraged to fulfill their role with specific number of hours, I think it'll be lots more attainable for lots of women who are interested in doing the role of the councillor, but just don't have the time, space or money for it, and feel like they're not having to juggle 1,000 things. So obviously there's not political appetite for that, so little campaigning takes place around it, but we'd absolutely love to work on those kind of issues and perhaps campaign with you to make that a reality.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. And there's also recently been a lot of campaigns around job sharing as well, encouraging job sharing to enable more women, you know, with childcare and other responsibilities, be able to, you know, take up positions and do them, you know, carry their duties out effectively whilst taking care of their families as well. And I see that there's, you know, there's a lot coming through the chat box in agreement with what you said. Katrina totally agrees with you, Zainab, and she goes, hear, hear, which is really good. And Alice says as well that it's an age issue, so there is that as well. You know, why should you be discriminated as a woman, be discriminated upon, you know, because of your age? In some spaces we've heard, oh, we're looking for young women. Oh, right, okay, what about the other women then? Absolute discrimination. I'm trying to pick up on some of the things that have come. Saz has said, hang on, just trying to get that name correctly. I believe that's what I see on my screen, but highly recommends the practical actions of Elect Her to encourage and enable women from all backgrounds to become more involved at all democratic levels. And she says she agrees that this is very important for the 2022 local elections in Wales, and I totally agree with that. She's also pointed us out to check out the Welsh Government's access to elected office funding, which could be very, very helpful, you know. So there's quite a lot coming out again on quotas, where she says it's good to hear recognition of the need to act and improve on all fronts. There are multiple strands to this. Quotas alone will not achieve parity, you know, and inclusive climate and financial and practical considerations. So there are lots of things, you know, to look around, a lot of strands involved in this that we need to look at. But just to quickly round up this session so that we can take the questions of our attendees, I would like to go back to Evelyn and ask how can attendees of When Cafe, not just today, but in the future ones, get involved in the Diverse 50/50 campaign and show their support.
Thank you very much, Patience. I think Zainab have said it, Sian have said it, Jessica have said it, you have said it, the people that have commented in the chat, they have said it all. The onus lies on us, to be honest. It's one thing to recognize a problem, it's another thing to take the steps to correct the problem or to provide a solution for the problem. So this problem will not solve itself, unfortunately, no matter how long we speak about it and no matter how much we complain about it. Believe me, the society recognizes it. It's been there from time immemorial. This division and gender disparity has been there, but it is on us to impact the change that we need. And this is why we need every one of us, every woman, everyone on this platform, whether man, whether woman, as long as you recognize the fact that true leadership and representation is supposed to be diverse, is supposed to be inclusive of all voices and reflective of the society that we live in, this is where we need all hands to be on deck to impact this change. And, you know, on the link, it is there. When Wales is open to everyone, it's not a one-person campaign. It's not a one organization campaign. It's not one person who will be taking the glory. It is all of us that will share in the glory of knowing that we have restored what should be the right thing in the community of Wales. And as well, it will be a glaring example to other communities as well, to other nations, to actually see that women stood together and voiced about this and were able to create this change to happen. These elections that is coming up gives us that ample opportunity. We need coalition at the grassroots level, sensitization for all the women. We need them to come on board. We need people to start recognizing the need to step into these positions and realize that they are enough. Their voices should be heard. They are capable of leading. There is no one that leadership was made squarely for. Anyone can lead. Anyone can impact change. So it's not an ideal of an ideal man for leadership or an ideal woman for leadership. If they are capable of leading, we are capable of leading as well. And that is that is the message we need to spread out there. That's the message we need to take to the grassroots level. True development and growth in the society comes when diverse minds come together, when we understand the need for equal voices and equal opportunities to be given to everyone. Every need must be met. And so I am calling on everyone. We need collaborations at all levels, all partners, everyone. Don't just sit back at home and say, oh, we need things to change. Be part of the change process. Be part of this platform right now, and let's push the agenda together. Who can we influence? Come on board, tell us. We will put the campaign out there. Let's go out, use your social media, use your spaces, your organizations. Let's come together. Let's put a force. There is power in one voice. There is power in unity, and that is what we need right now. We believe in our voices. We believe that they cannot ignore us all. Imagine, we need to bombard their space. Wherever they are going to, they need to see it. Oh my God, we're so tired of hearing this thing. So if you're tired of hearing it, get the job done. That is what we need right now. So we cannot take the back seat. I'm sorry, this is not the time for us to relax and say it's business as usual. Guess what? Business as usual needs to change, and it needs to change now. So we need to get in their faces. We need to get into their spaces and tell them, turn things around. Give women equal opportunity. Give us the platform to speak for ourselves. We can speak. We don't need people to speak for us. We can tell people what our problems is. We have the ideas and the knowledge on how we can turn things around as well. Bring us on board, bring us to the table, just as Sian rightly said. Let us be at the table. Let us add our voice to the change that we need in the society. The society is not without us. is not oblivious of us. We contribute to the growth of this society. And as far as that concerns all of us, our voices need to be heard. So please get on board, sign up to Diverse 50/50 campaign, get on board, everyone. Give us your input, give us your ideas. We are not saying we have all the knowledge it takes to change this. We need your voice as well. We need your input as well. Come on board, tell us, how can we penetrate the community in Wales? Let's take it one community at a time. Let's go into different communities and speak. Let's us reinvigorate young minds to start thinking. Imagine we have the opportunity now, because the age limit has been lowered for voting, 16. We need to start inspiring young minds. We need to start getting the young people involved. Sign up for the mentorship scheme. It's there. Refer them to come on board and learn more how to stand up and speak for themselves. We don't need to wait until our 50s to start having another set of 50s or 40s or 60s or 80s to come and start saying, oh, things need to change. We need to start making them realize the need to do things now. And that is why we need all of you. I can't say it enough, but every one of us have a part to play in this role right now. And the power lies in our voices, every one of us, in our actions, in our communities, in our spaces. Let's get to it.
Absolutely. I feel your passion, Evelyn. It's scintillating through my whole body. Well done. And I think When Wales has also posted in the chat box a link for every woman and every gender-friendly man to sign up to this campaign. If you believe in it, sign up to it and sign up to it today. And Saz has also put in the chat box that if you're thinking of standing as a local government candidate in 2022, please check out what payments you might be entitled to. And there's a link, and consultation opens today. Good news, happy days, right? Right. And just very quickly, because I'm very conscious that we're coming to the end of the session and we've still got questions in the Q&A to take from the attendees today. I'm also thinking about, you know, the new form of abuse against women, which is the online abuse that women are getting, and which is really stopping them from presenting themselves for political positions. And so, Sian, coming back to you, and very quickly, as a politician in the public eye, what do you think needs to happen to ensure that issues such as online abuse do not, first of all, discourage diverse women from standing, and second of all, do not cause them to step back when they reach positions of leadership? What needs to happen?
Well, this is certainly one of the potential barriers, you know, that does distract women from standing for office, and it is a big problem. And the long-term answer, of course, is to change the whole nature of society, the whole way that women are perceived in society. And that can start to happen through the education system. You know, Wales now will have healthy relationships, and the need to respect differences. That will be part of the new curriculum that will be rolled out in Wales. That's the long-term answer, and you know, we should discount the long-term structural changes that need to happen to move away from the patriarchal society that we're part of. In the short term, I think it's about trying to call it out, you know, every time it happens, that it's called out, and that we support each other when we see misogynistic behaviour online, you know, that we all pile in to condemn it. And I also think, you know, the space that an organisation like Zainab can provide and to discuss techniques that can be used is really very, very important. I think the main thing is to do it together, to feel that we are part of a force for change, and that we support each other all the time in that kind of way. But it is something that's a definite barrier. There are other barriers, lots of other barriers as well, but then none of them are unsurmountable given the right will. And just one thing that we haven't touched upon really, we've talked about why we want equality and diversity, and said, because it sort of leads to changes that we desire, but it also brings different skill sets to the table. And, that is really important as well. As women, we're often better listeners. We're often better negotiators. There are skills that we can be bringing forward into the political life, which maybe are missing at the moment, and which actually will make politics more amenable to more people, because I don't think people really want to see politicians shouting at each other across the chamber in Westminster, do they? I mean, most people want to see us working together, and I think the Senedd is much better in that respect. And just Zainab, just to let you know, the Senedd, the Welsh Parliament, is still meeting in hybrid fashion. So, we're not all together in Cardiff. And I think for the future, that is a good model that we can be continuing way past the COVID situation, because it can help address some of the barriers that we've been talking about. Sorry, Patience, I've gone off the question, as politicians do, but I just wanted to make those points.
That's all right. Do not apologize. I mean, everything you're saying is very important and will definitely, make a difference in somebody's life who's listening to us. So do not apologize at all. I'm just going to come back to you for the final question in this session, Zainab. And it's on the back of everything that Sian has said. What needs to be done to ensure that women are supported, once they're in the public eye? What do you think?
Oh, there's so much to this. Women need a lot of support once they have been elected. And I think the things that we've already mentioned, which is about making sure that they are protected online, so having training around how to protect themselves online, how to mute, how to block, really things that seem quite like, you think, oh yeah, but you would do that. Many women don't do that, and they don't understand the mechanics of Twitter, for example, that allows them to do that. So an organization like Glitch coming in and doing a workshop with newly elected women about how to protect themselves online and their families, but also for people in political parties about how to be a great online active bystander. As Sian was saying, when you see somebody being abused, what do you do? How do you protect them? How do you shower them with love to ensure that they don't feel victimized by the abuse that's occurring to them, or holding space for them, because actually it is an abuse, I think that so we've already talked about the fact that political parties need to change more and be a bit more inclusive. And we are seeing, breakout stars, women like Sian, who are in elected office, really leading the way for diversifying elected office. And we just need to support you all. So anything you need, just let us know and we can continue to do that. We want to continue to train and support women with regards to media training. For example, many women might not have had to deal with the media at all before, so making sure there's effective media training on the role as well, So many times women, especially women who have gone through the election process, have never been in elected office before, are kind of thrust into the fire, and they're expected to learn on the job. Which can be quite hard when you're also dealing with constituents' issues in real time. So really having that training and support system of the party, of the local government in the area, to ensure that they feel that they are held if something goes awry, or if they need help or have questions, being able to have their questions answered is really important. But also organizations like us, Elect Her, we are creating a community of women for peer support. And so tying them into our organizations, perhaps creating this, huge group of women that can come together and or vent about some of the issues that they're facing in elected office and provide each other with advice, you know, mentoring with other women politicians, or actually allies of women politicians, so that they get to understand the process and get advice from someone who's done it for a bit longer. I think mentorship is a big thing, and it's something that a lot of women in our communities are constantly asking us for, and we're working on it. It's tough, and also there's a lot of there's a lot of women in our community who want to get into elected office, and there is not an equal number of women in elected office. So we need to ensure that more women are in elected office so we can provide these mentorship opportunities. And again, I said, you know, demystifying the process of putting themselves forward for political office is really important. It means that we are not icing people out. We are not isolating people who don't know how politics works, but we're inviting them in, and that's really important. We're allowing them to see that actually I can do this, and that's what happens when you demystify the process of standing for election. And I think that might be it. I mean, there's loads of things that we can be doing. I think the women who are live at the intersection of lots of different identities, of course, need specific support, because they tend to be getting abuse from lots of different places that are attacking all of their identities at once. So providing specialist support for them. And also, I think, just making sure that we are there and we are supporting these women publicly, and letting them know that we are there for them and in their corner and fighting for them, and that actually if they wanted to launch something in local government, if they wanted to launch a campaign, if they wanted to launch legislation or change a law, that we're right behind them, because we know that when we support them, they're more likely to do more. And I think I'll leave it there.
That is absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much. And I do apologize that this session of the event has, you know, taken a lot of the time, you know, most of the 1 hour that we should have spent on here. And we very well could be going over the hour by a few minutes, because we've got a few questions in the Q&A box, which I would like us to take, if we can be very precise with the answers and the responses. And looking at the questions, you know, from the attendees, I believe that a lot of what was covered in this past section, you know, deals with the questions that have been asked, but, you know, there might be 1 or 2 things to add. And so straight away, I will go into the first question, which is from Alice Smith, who asks, how does 50/50 incorporate the lived experience of women survivors such as herself? And how are we planning to tackle the associated stigma? I will leave that question open to any one of the panelists to pick up on as briefly as possible.
Okay, I'll go. Thank you very much for that very important question, Alice. One of our targets right now, as Diverse 50/50 campaign, is working on the 3 C's. 1, coalition. 2, communication. 3, the campaign. For us, the coalition is very important because it's the opportunity for us to reach out to people, both in the grassroots, and partner with them. Because we believe, as part of our campaign strategy, to involve people with lived experiences, because we know that their voices are salient to how we're going to impact this change. So part of what we've done is to reach out to our partners in different organizations, in different Welsh communities, to help us with input on how we can involve people in grassroots levels to come on board this campaign. And as well, like we shared on the chat box, we have the mentorship program going on. So anybody can sign up. It's not restricted to any age limit or nothing, or sexuality. So we would be very happy to have you on board. Sign up. And you can also shoot an email to us whenever, because we're here to incorporate all of these experiences. We don't want these leaders to only hear the story from us, or to only hear our reasons for why we need diversity in leadership. We want them to hear it also from people at these different grassroots communities. And that's why we say all voices are very important right now, because it's not just about Wales, it's not just about electoral reform or any organization. It's about all of us impacting this change in the community of Wales, and that includes your lived experiences. I hope.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Evelyn, for that. And the next question is from an anonymous attendee, for which I apologize again, because I do not know if this is a male or female or how they choose to identify, but they talk about their challenges, you know, one with a Twitter history, where the attendee is saying that it's very likely that they've expressed things in the past and which they don't believe in presently. And also because they believe in growth, learning from mistakes and so on, and not having a deep dive, or having done a deep dive into how to delete things, you know, in the past. So it's, I know that we have talked about glitches and in social media, and Zainab has put a link into how to do that. We've also talked about training, you know, and how, I don't know if anyone else has anything to add that will alleviate the worries of this attendee. The second thing the attendee talks about is not being able to work full-time because of their health, you know, fluctuations, and so doesn't see politics as being an accessible space at the moment, and you know, they would like to think that they are wrong in this assumption. So what advice would panelists have on either or both of these matters? Does anybody want to come in? Yes, Zainab.
I will try and take the first one and the second one. The second one, I'm saddened to read that, but also I know it's a reality for many disabled women that actually politics is not, it's not accessible. I'm not even gonna say it doesn't look accessible, it isn't. And I think there is a lack of political will to make sure that it is accessible. We talked about the Enable Fund, and I'm so glad that Wales kept it, but in England, they got rid of it. And they are going to be bringing it back a week before the election or something next year in 2022 for disabled politicians. And it's just like, that's not helpful. And so we have created our Disabled Women's Roundtable so that we can really discuss these issues, and also so it's disabled women politicians, disabled women activists, and disabled women's organizations who are coming together to find solutions on how to make politics more accessible to disabled women. So I would like to invite you to attend our meetings. They are bi-monthly. I typed in something in the chat, so I'll just enter it in now with my email address. If you'd like to join that, if anybody in the chat would like to join the bi-monthly roundtables, please just email me. It is open to all women who are interested in politics and wanting to see a change, so that we can see more disabled women in elected office. And the first question around Twitter history, I feel like a lot of people have been there. I think from my personal perspective, honesty is always the best policy with politics. And I think it depends on your political party. When you are putting yourself forward for election and selection and election, as we call it, you will probably have to fill in a form that asks you to disclose anything that could ever come up should you be selected to run in an election. That is your opportunity to be honest about anything that might crop up, because your political party or the independent network that you've chosen to associate with will have a process of being able to deal with any crisis like that pops up. If you give them time to work on a response, then it'll be better than it coming up in the middle of an election campaign and blowing up in all of your faces. So honestly, it was always the best policy. And I believe, just on a personal level, that if something does come up, you're allowed to have grown as a person. Something that you have written 10 years ago that is no longer your belief, you're allowed to grow as a person, as long as you can show that you have done that growing, as long as you can show that you have developed from that particular point of view, but also most importantly, apologizing that you held those views. So I think apologizing earnestly, but also being honest with your political party or your independent network, whichever you associate with, about what might come up so that you can plan for that moment. And not in a superficial way, but in a way that's deeply meaningful. Reaching out to communities that will be harmed by whatever it is that you've said is also good, learn it, and showing your learning and your growth is really important. So that's my 2 pence. So the Twitter thing is more my personal opinion rather than an elector point of view. I don't know what elector's point of view on that would be, but the disability one is an elector roundtables that we'd love for you to join.
Thank you very much, Zainab. And because we've run out of time, I'm just going to go straight into the third and final question that I've picked up from the Q&A box. And it just asks, it's from Saz Wiley, I believe that's the pronunciation of her surname, or if not, excuse me, and apologies. Any suggestions on how to promote allies and positive stories and behaviours? And goes on to say there is good progress and commitment. The Welsh Government Cabinet has more women than men, and several local authorities have committed to 50-50 cabinets next year. So suggestions on how to promote allies and positive stories. Would you like to take this question, Sian?
Yes, I think this is really important, that we do promote the positive stories and that we do promote role models of all shapes and sizes, to put it that way, to reflect the diversity that we are trying to achieve. Because yes, there are examples of good practice, and absolutely that is the best way to showcase what is possible, is that will show real life examples of diversity and equal representation in action, and then to say, look, if it can be done here, it can be done everywhere. I think that's a very powerful way of moving forward. And maybe, you know, when Wales certainly have got a role to be playing in that, and as politicians also can be ambassadors, and hopefully I'm a role model for women in my constituency, and that is why I'm doing this. One reason anyway, that is, you know, so I think that is a really important question, and we should really be looking for all kinds of ways to promote.
Oh, definitely. I agree with that. And just to assure you, you're not just a role model to women in your constituency, you're a role model to every woman in Wales and across the world. And so I'd like to say a massive thank you to all the attendees, and apologies again for going over the 1 hour by a couple of minutes. I can see that all attendees except one have remained with us, and this just goes to show us how very important Diverse 50-50 is to every one of us here today, but also to the global world. And so thank you very much. I'd like to, at this juncture, ask Gwen Wales to kindly launch the closing survey, and if we can all take a few minutes to run that survey and click to submit, do not forget. And I think I'm doing it as well as we speak, and then we will say give the final closing thanks and say goodbye.